You don't notice the shift at first. You're too caught up in the warmth of the moment, the low hum of conversation, the clinking glasses, the soft swirl of music wrapping around the room like a velvet ribbon. Someone has just told a genuinely funny story, and you're laughing in that unguarded way you only do when you feel safe, open, alive. The kind of laugh that lifts your shoulders, lights your face, and makes your eyes shine. And then something in the atmosphere tilts. It's tiny at first, like a candle flickering when a door opens somewhere far away. You don't even know why you glance over your shoulder, or what exactly you're expecting to see. But your eyes find him almost instinctively, standing at the edge of the room with a drink in his hand, watching you. There's no smile on his face, no warmth, just that distant look, tight jaw, still shoulders, eyes that seem both wounded and accusing. A look that makes your stomach dip, not because you think you did anything wrong, but because you've seen that expression before. It's the same one he had at the restaurant when the waiter complimented your earrings. The same one he had when you mentioned your coworker's promotion. The same one he had last month when a stranger held the door for you and said, "After you." A strange guilt flickers through you, even though you can't name what crime you're supposed to have committed. You try to brush it off, try to rejoin the conversation in front of you, but the laughter doesn't rise as easily. Your voice softens. You become aware of how close you're standing to the people around you. You feel yourself shrinking, pulling your light inward like someone cupping a flame against the wind. And there it is, the first tiny bruise of sadness. Because you weren't doing anything wrong. You were just existing, just being you. But suddenly being you feels dangerous. Later, in the car, the tension sits heavy between you, as if the silence has weight. You ask if something's wrong, and he says he's fine. You know that tone, the one that sounds calm but feels cold. The hurt in his eyes from earlier lingers in your mind like an aftertaste you can't wash away. Part of you feels frustrated, angry even. Angry that an ordinary moment has turned into an invisible argument. Angry that joy has become something you have to manage, as if it's too bright, too loud, too risky. Another part of you feels something closer to fear. Not fear of him, but fear of what this dynamic might mean. Fear of losing pieces of yourself without even noticing. Fear of slowly dimming just to avoid stirring the water. What makes this so confusing is how quietly it happens. He never says, "Don't laugh with other people." He never says, "Don't talk to other men." He probably wouldn't even think of himself as jealous. But his silence, his posture, the tightness around his eyes, they speak fluently even when he doesn't. When you replay the moment in your mind, you almost question your own perception. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe you were imagining the tension. Maybe you're the problem for being so sensitive to it. That whisper of self-blame slips in before you can stop it, turning over every tiny detail of the evening, looking for evidence that you caused the shift. But a deeper part of you, older, wiser, knows something else entirely. You know that what you felt wasn't imagined. The air really did change. His eyes really did follow you. The brightness you were enjoying really did dim. And here is where the ache settles. Because you don't want to hurt him. You care for him. You want him to feel secure, valued, wanted. You want to be a soft place for him to land in a world that's already harsh on men in ways they rarely admit. But you also want to exist freely. To be yourself without performing emotional gymnastics to keep someone else from falling apart. You want to laugh without checking who's watching. You want to glow without fearing who might be shadowed by it. As you sit there in the car, watching the streetlights slide across the windshield, you start to feel something else. Curiosity. Not the soft, idle kind, but the sharper kind that forms when something finally stops making sense. Why does he react this way? Why does your joy feel like a threat? Why do his eyes turn into a mirror that reflects back all his hidden insecurities onto your simplest interactions? And then another feeling rises, one that surprises you. Compassion. Because behind his silence wasn't anger, it was fear. You felt it, thin, raw, unspoken. Fear that he might lose you. Fear that he's not enough. Fear that the world is full of men who could take from him what he most values. Fear he doesn't know how to confess, because men are rarely taught how to speak insecurity without drowning in shame. You sense all of this, not because he articulated it, but because the energy told the story for him. That's when a deeper realization begins to bloom. This isn't just about tonight. It's about the invisible threads pulling at him. Threads woven from his biology, his past, his self-esteem, and the culture that taught him what it means to be a man. And without understanding those threads, you're left navigating a maze blindfolded. You deserve better than confusion. He deserves better than silence. And the relationship deserves better than a tug-of-war between your joy and his fear. So the question becomes this: how do you understand the forces shaping his reactions without losing the parts of yourself that make you shine? And that question is where this journey truly begins. There's a strange kind of betrayal in realizing that his discomfort around other men isn't always about you at all. It feels counterintuitive at first. You replay moments where his jaw tightened, where his eyes followed you, where the warmth in his voice cooled without warning, and it's easy to believe the tension is something you caused. But if you peel back the layers carefully, there's an older story buried underneath. Older than him, older than you, older than the relationship itself. It begins in a world neither of you have ever lived in, yet one that shaped both of you in ways you never consented to. Imagine a time when survival wasn't a metaphor, when losing a partner didn't just break a heart, it threatened resources, safety, lineage. When the stakes weren't emotional, but existential. For men in that world, vigilance wasn't insecurity, it was insurance. Every smile their partner shared, every conversation that lingered a little too long, every gesture from another man carried real consequences. The body adapted. The nerves learned to tighten. The brain learned to scan the horizon for rivals long before language ever existed to explain why. Even now, thousands of years later, that ancient alarm still lives inside him like an old program that keeps running quietly in the background. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for logic. It's a reflex, the kind that fires faster than thought. When he sees you laughing with someone else, his mind might register that it's harmless, but the deepest part of his nervous system reacts as if the ground beneath him has shifted an inch. A flicker of adrenaline, a knot low in the stomach, a subtle stiffening of posture. You've seen that flicker. You've felt the knot in the air even if it's not in your own body. He isn't choosing it. That doesn't excuse the behavior that follows, but it does explain why his reaction feels so sudden, so disproportionate, so out of sync with the reality in front of him. His biology is reacting to a world that no longer exists. His mind is trying to maintain dignity while his instincts are preparing for a threat that might not even be real. And there's a quiet irony here. The more he cares about you, the more easily that ancient alarm is triggered. Love sharpens the fear of loss. Attachment magnifies any perceived threat. You become the most precious resource in his emotional landscape. And suddenly everyone around you becomes a potential rival he never asked to compete with. There's a moment some women remember vividly. the first time they saw this instinct appear in the man they love. A holiday dinner where a family friend complimented your dress. A gym visit where a stranger held the door and smiled. A work event where a coworker stood too close. The shift in him was almost invisible, but not invisible enough. His arm tightened around your waist. His responses grew shorter. His eyes lingered on the other man with a focus that wasn't anger exactly, but something sharper, something watchful. You might have brushed it off the first time, felt flattered even. There's a certain thrill, a tiny spark of joy, when someone feels protective of you. It can feel like passion, like a testament to how much you mean to him. But as that instinct shows up again and again, the thrill fades and the confusion grows. The little spark becomes a weight you have to carry, a shadow that shows up whenever you shine. This is where sadness creeps in, because understanding the instinct is one thing, living with the consequences is another. You don't want to be punished for being warm, friendly, alive. You don't want to feel like your joy is a liability. And yet, somewhere deep within him, the instinct whispers that connection is a battlefield, and you are the prize in the middle of it. It's heartbreaking, because the instinct comes from a place of wanting to keep what he loves safe. But the way it shows up can make the very thing he wants to protect feel trapped instead. Still, there's another side to this that deserves attention, even if it doesn't erase the discomfort it brings. That ancient instinct didn't exist in isolation. It evolved because it worked. Men who were indifferent sometimes lost partners to men who weren't. Men who stayed close, who paid attention, who guarded their bonds, increased their chances of passing on their lineage. You are, in many ways, looking at the emotional descendants of the men who guarded successfully. There's a kind of bittersweet tenderness in that truth. Not because it justifies controlling behavior, it doesn't, but because it reminds you that humans are still shaped by survival codes far older than civilization. You're not dealing with a villain. You're dealing with a man whose nervous system is acting out a story his conscious mind never wrote. When you see his discomfort through this lens, it changes something in you. Not your boundaries, not your expectations, not your value, but your understanding. The frustration softens a little. The anger becomes less sharp. A small space opens for compassion, not the kind that excuses, but the kind that recognizes that he's fighting a ghost he can't see. And still, the question remains. If his body is reacting to ancient dangers, what happens when those instincts collide with the personal wounds he carries from his own life? His insecurities, his past relationships, his fear of not being enough. That collision is where the real story begins to take shape. The instinct may be ancient, but the pain is modern. The alarm is old, but the reasons it goes off today are far more personal than anything evolution ever imagined. Understanding that blend is the key to seeing him clearly, without losing sight of yourself in the process. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when the ancient instinct inside him stops being an echo of the past and starts blending with the wounds he carries in the present. You can sense this shift long before you understand it. His tension is no longer just a flicker of vigilance. It becomes a tremor, a tightening, something that feels personal rather than primal. The fear in his eyes isn't about survival anymore. It's about self-worth. You see it most clearly in the way he looks at you after another man makes you laugh. Not just the flash of discomfort, but the way his gaze drops for a split second, like he's falling through some unseen trapdoor inside himself. Something in him whispers, she could do better. And maybe she knows it. You can feel that whisper in his silence, in his slumped shoulders, in the way he withdraws just enough for you to feel a cold space open where warmth used to be. That's when jealousy stops being a simple emotional reaction and becomes a mirror he's terrified to look into. Jealousy has always been misunderstood. People like to call it ugly or toxic, but underneath its sharp edges, it's made of something very human. Fear. Fear of losing what brings you joy. Fear of being replaced. Fear of not measuring up. For him, jealousy is a smoke detector that reacts not to fire, but to the possibility of fire. And when his self-esteem is fragile, the detector goes off at the faintest hint of smoke, even when you're just having a harmless conversation. You feel the effects of this even if he never says a word. When he compares himself to another man in the room, he isn't comparing muscles or height or confidence. He's comparing identities. He wonders if someone else could love you better, keep you safer, make you happier. He wonders if he is enough. And the cruel twist is that the more he doubts himself, the more he imagines every man around you as a rival. Not because they are, but because he's already losing a silent war inside his own head. There's a heaviness in witnessing this battle. You can see that he's hurting, and a part of you aches for him. You want to reach out and say, "You are enough. I chose you." But you've learned that words don't always reach the places where insecurities live. They hide in old memories, in childhood wounds, in past relationships that carved fears into him long before you arrived. You aren't fighting his present, you're fighting his history. And that history often has sharp edges. Maybe he once loved someone who left him without warning. Maybe he grew up feeling compared, criticized, or overshadowed. Maybe he learned early on that affection was conditional, that attention was scarce, that love had to be earned. Or maybe he grew up being praised for what he did, not who he was, and now he feels like he has to constantly prove his worth to keep you close. When these old wounds collide with the ancient instinct to guard the relationship, something complicated forms inside him. The man who fears abandonment becomes hyper-aware of every tiny shift in your attention. The man who fears inadequacy becomes convinced that every other man is stronger, more charming, more desirable. The man who never learned to feel safe in love becomes terrified every time you shine, because your shine feels like something that could attract someone else. That's when you start noticing things that don't feel like normal jealousy anymore. He might go silent after seeing you talk to someone. He might watch your smile too closely, as if trying to decode whether it was meant for him or for someone else. He might start asking questions that feel harmless at first. Who was that guy? You two seem close. Did he text you again? The anxiety in his voice tells the real story. He isn't policing you. He's policing his fear. Sometimes the fear turns inward, and you see him become smaller, quieter, withdrawn, insecure. Other times it turns outward, and you feel irritation or tension radiate from him like heat. Not anger at you, but anger at the feeling of helplessness inside him. Anger at the imagined threat he can't quite shake. And there are moments, heavy ones, when you feel both empathy and exhaustion at the same time. Because it's hard to watch someone you love crumble under fears they won't speak aloud. It's hard to keep reassuring a heart that won't believe it's safe. It's hard to be the one who stays steady while he storms internally. But even in that difficulty, there's a truth you can sense. He isn't trying to control you. He's trying to control the panic inside him. Panic that comes from imagining a future where he loses you. Panic that whispers, if she sees everything I'm not, maybe she'll leave. Panic that tells him love is fragile, and he must hold on tightly or risk losing everything. That panic grows louder in a world where comparison is constant. Social media makes it worse. One like on a photo, one comment from a stranger, one DM from someone you don't even think about can send him spiraling. Not because he thinks you're doing something wrong, but because every interaction becomes a reminder of all the ways he doesn't feel he measures up. It's an exhausting emotional landscape for him. even if he hides it behind quietness or indifference. And yet, there's a hopeful truth buried underneath this chaos. His fear doesn't appear because you're untrustworthy. It appears because you matter. You matter so much that losing you feels catastrophic. You matter so much that every perceived threat becomes amplified. You matter so much that your light, your warmth, your presence becomes something he's terrified of losing. But being cherished shouldn't feel like being watched. Being loved shouldn't feel like being monitored. And his fear, while understandable, can't become the boundary of your world. There's a deeper layer to this puzzle, one rooted not in biology or personal insecurity, but in the stories men are taught about what love should look like. Stories that tell them they must guard, compete, dominate, protect, claim. Stories that shape their emotional reactions long before they ever meet you. And those stories have a power of their own. There's a heaviness that settles in when you realize his insecurity isn't only born from instinct or personal wounds. It's also shaped by a world that has been whispering in his ear since the day he was born. A world that taught him how a man should love, should protect, should react, even when those lessons make him miserable. The story he's acting out isn't one he wrote, it's one he inherited. You've seen hints of that script in tiny, almost invisible ways. The offhand jokes people make. Better keep an eye on her. You gotta hold on tight. Careful, man, she's a catch. They come wrapped in humor, but humor is just truth wearing a softer coat. Those comments reinforce an idea he never asked for, but absorbed anyway. If he doesn't guard you, someone else will steal you. If he doesn't watch the room, he'll lose the woman he loves. If he doesn't stand his ground, he'll look weak. Weakness. That word carries an entire childhood of pressure for many men. It's the shadow they run from, the ghost behind their most guarded corners. He learned long ago that fear isn't something he's allowed to show. Vulnerability isn't something he's allowed to name. Sadness isn't something he's allowed to feel out loud. So jealousy becomes the mask his softer emotions hide behind. Anger becomes the substitute for fear. Control becomes the cover for insecurity. You can see how trapped he is inside that script when you watch him at social gatherings. If another man approaches you, even with innocent intentions, something inside him tightens like a muscle preparing for impact. It's not that he's eager to fight. It's that the culture he grew up in taught him that a real man doesn't lose. A real man holds on. A real man protects what's his. A real man keeps his partner close enough that no one else even tries. There's a sadness in recognizing this. Not pity, but heartbreak. Because you can almost picture the young version of him, small, unsure, trying to make sense of a world that praises strength but never teaches softness. A boy told to man up, to shake it off, to stop acting like a girl whenever fear or doubt crept in. A boy who learned that tenderness was dangerous, but dominance was safe. That emotions made him vulnerable, but detachment made him admirable. That possession meant passion, and passion meant love. And all those rules, all that noise, eventually became the background music of his adult relationships. That music plays loudest in moments of jealousy. When he sees you smiling at another man, he isn't only reacting to the moment in front of him. He's reacting to years of conditioning that tells him your attention is a currency he has to defend. The world taught him that if another man notices you, it's a threat. Not because he doesn't trust you, but because he's been trained to interpret it as a challenge to his masculinity, his pride, his identity. It's enough to make anyone feel suffocated. For you, It feels like walking through a gallery where every expression is being interpreted, every laugh monitored, every moment of joy observed. You feel the weight of being watched, not because he wants to trap you, but because he's terrified of losing you. And yet, that fear can twist loving into guarding, connection into surveillance, attention into pressure. There are parts of this that might make you angry, and you have every right to feel that. Angry that society gives men permission to control, but not permission to feel. Angry that you are left carrying the burden of his beliefs, beliefs you never asked to participate in. Angry that love becomes smaller when it was meant to be expansive. But anger doesn't erase the compassion that rises beside it. Because you can see how unfair the script is, not only for you, but for him. The world told him that love should feel like possession, but no one taught him how to hold love without gripping too tightly. The world told him to be a protector, but never showed him how to protect without hurting. The world gave him armor, but stole his language for vulnerability, leaving him with instincts he can't explain and emotions he can't express. You can almost hear the cultural messages ringing through him when he stiffens beside you. They echo in the silence after a party, in the distance in his voice, in the uncertainty on his face. They're as old as the movies he grew up watching. Scenes where jealous men punch walls, confront rivals, storm out dramatically, and somehow it's portrayed as devotion rather than dysfunction. He learned early that jealousy wasn't a flaw. It was passion. It was intensity. It was proof. But you know better. Intensity isn't intimacy. Possession isn't connection. Fear isn't love. Still, he's carrying a script that tells him otherwise, and he's been performing it his whole life. It's one of the saddest and most infuriating things to witness in someone you love, watching them become a prisoner of expectations they never chose. And when those expectations collide with his insecurities, when a culture that glorifies guarding meets a mind afraid of abandonment, the result is a man who feels threatened even in rooms where nothing threatening is happening. A man who sees competition where you see simple kindness. A man who feels judged by the world for not being man enough, even though you never asked him to prove anything. The tragedy is that he doesn't want to live this way. He doesn't want to be tense, defensive, on edge. He doesn't want to analyze every smile or overthink every interaction. He doesn't want to fear losing you every time you stand in the light. But if he doesn't question the script will keep writing him. And you're left wondering how to love a man who is fighting a story that doesn't belong to him. How to stay soft without becoming small. How to support him without carrying the weight of a world he didn't choose but still obeys. Somewhere inside this mess is the beginning of change. Not the kind that happens overnight, but the kind that begins when someone finally sees the script for what it is and decides they won't let it run their life anymore. There's a moment in every relationship where you realize understanding him is not the same thing as saving him. You can see the threads that pull at him, the instinct he inherited, the insecurities he absorbed, the cultural script he never chose, and you understand why he reacts the way he does. But knowing why doesn't automatically tell you how to live with it. Understanding might open your heart, but it doesn't erase the weight. You're still the one who feels the tension when you laugh too loudly. You're still the one who shrinks when his silence fills the room. You're still the one who worries whether being fully yourself will stir up shadows you didn't create. And this is where something shifts inside you. Because compassion without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. And you've spent enough time in your life learning what it feels like to shrink for someone else. Not again. Not this time. The first thing you begin to realize is that his feelings, no matter how intense, do not make you responsible for managing them. You can care about the fear in his chest without letting it dictate the size of your world. You can acknowledge the hurt behind his tension without apologizing for smiling at someone who simply made you laugh. You can hold space for his vulnerability without letting it consume your freedom. Loving someone doesn't require turning yourself into an emotional cushion for their insecurities. Love that demands your silence isn't love, it's captivity dressed as devotion. Yet you also know he's not your enemy. He's not intentionally hurting you. His reactions come from fear, not cruelty. And because of that, you don't want to meet his fear with more fear. You want to meet it with clarity, with the kind of steady warmth that says, "I'm here, but I'm also here as myself." That's where reassurance becomes less about calming him and more about strengthening the connection between you. Not in the heat of jealousy, when emotions are already spinning, but in quieter moments when his heart is open and yours is steady. You might find yourself touching his arm before heading out with friends and saying something simple but sincere. Something like, "I'll miss you while I'm out, but I'll be looking forward to coming home to you." It doesn't bend your freedom, it strengthens the bridge between you. At a gathering, a gentle glance across the room, a soft smile that only he notices. Those are little threads of connection that help his nervous system feel anchored rather than threatened. They don't fix his fears, but they soften the edges. Still, reassurance alone cannot carry what his self-worth must hold. You can't build his confidence for him. You can't delete his past or rewrite his childhood or heal the wounds he refuses to face. What you can do is speak to the truth of who he is when you see something worth naming. Maybe you tell him how you admire the way he handled a difficult situation at work. Maybe you tell him you noticed the patience he had with his niece or the kindness he showed a stranger. Small, specific acknowledgments can shift the story he tells himself, not because you're inflating his ego, but because you're highlighting his character. But even those words are seeds. He has to water them himself. And then there are the boundaries, the hard, beautiful lines that protect what makes you feel alive. Boundaries are not walls, they are doorways with rules. They allow love to enter, but keep fear-driven behavior from wreaking havoc. When he asks to go through your phone, your answer isn't a fight, it's a truth. "I'm not going to share my private messages." Trust has to be the foundation of us. When he withdraws for hours because a man at a party complimented your dress, you don't chase him with apologies. You sit beside him gently and say, "I want to talk about what happened when you're ready, but I'm not going to feel guilty for having normal conversations." These moments don't just set boundaries with him, they set boundaries with yourself. They remind you that your worth, your joy, your social light is not negotiable. You are not here to dim. You are not here to walk on eggshells. You are not here to live inside someone else's fear. And yet, you're also not here to be hardened. You don't want to build armor around your heart. You don't want to turn cold or distant or detached. You want to stay warm, expressive, radiant. You want to remain the kind of woman who laughs freely, cares deeply, and connects genuinely. Boundaries don't make you harsh, they make you safe. They protect you so that love doesn't cost you pieces of yourself. There's another truth you eventually face, and it's one of the hardest. If his fear ever grows into control, if he begins to isolate you, monitor you, belittle you, punish you, then this stops being a love story and becomes a warning. Understanding the roots of his fear will not save you from the branches that hurt you. You are allowed to walk away from any relationship where protection becomes possession, where love becomes leverage, where fear becomes a weapon. But when he shows the willingness to understand himself, when he chooses awareness over instinct, when he tries, genuinely tries, to separate his fear from his actions, something beautiful emerges. A A relationship where both people stay whole. A connection where both partners can shine. A love that doesn't shrink either of you, but expands the space between you. And perhaps that is the quiet miracle of this entire journey. The realization that his growth is his own, and your light is still yours. You can love him without dimming. You can understand him without absorbing his fears. You can support him without becoming small. You can be with him without losing you.